With 4 million sounds, what will you create? Take the free trial today.
Hello YouTube, welcome to a new Synth Anatomy video here from the Superbooth 20 Home Edition. I'm on the line with Stephan Schmitt from Nonlinear Labs. How are you?
Hey, yeah, nice to see you, and yeah, to have you interviewing me. Thank you.
How are you healthy? For you, are you still working? Everything fine?
We are quite busy because we were preparing a big update for this Superbooth, and yeah, we're doing it. But many of our people are working from home because it's a software development and they can do it from home. And but also production is going on, so some people are here to assemble instruments. You see in the background, and yeah,
manufacturing.
Yeah.
So you're manufacturing everything in Berlin, or?
Yeah, let's say we assemble everything here. So when we test the instruments, and so yeah. And for us, it's important to have, let's say, the sources as local as possible. So we get, for example, the electronic circuit boards. We get them from a Berlin company. We have them assembled in Berlin. We got the wood and the metal of the instrument. We got from Italy for a while. Now we have switched to German vendors, and yeah, doing with Berlin companies, with European companies as much as possible. And of course, there are other components in there, like there's a main board from Intel that is
okay.
We have no influence from where this comes.
And you are the company. It's your company. It's Nonlinear Labs, but you have a quite interesting and deep background. You are in history, in software. I think many people already played with your instruments in the past, but they doesn't know that you have developed them.
Yeah, my background is native instruments, so that's it was say the biggest thing that I did in my life, and I started native instruments in 1993. So we were very small, or just two people trying to be, or we were pioneers in the field of software synthesizers, and we came to the notice of the public in 96, I should say. This was the time, there was only two other companies trying something to implement software synthesizers. And so this was our start in that field. And we did it with predecessor of Reaktor. So for those who know Reaktor, our first product was it was called Generator. This was the first name, and it was already, it had this the concept of being completely or extremely modular. So you on screen with a graphical tool set, you can connect modules and build your own instruments. And because what we learned when we actually I had to train myself developing software. So before that I was an electrical engineer, was not so much into software. But when you do software development, you learn that it is important to be modular, or to be to have components that you can reuse later. And for me, it was very obvious that we could give this to the customers in the way that they can do it by themselves. So to empower the customers to develop whatever they imagine. Similar like Max MSP or some other software, but we try to be, let's say, higher quality in audio, or more in the way of giving an instrument building to the tool set. So with Reaktor, we were able to develop also something that looked and sounded like the Prophet, the sequential Prophet. And this was the first plugin that was really successful for native instruments. And then other products like the B4, the FM7, the Absynth, and contact, battery, and so on. So all these products were then developed by a team of people who were really enthusiastic about this chance to develop software that can make sound. And so Native Instrument had the we were at the right place. We were in Berlin. So Berlin was very attractive. We had this. It was a time of the techno movement in the 90s. People were also fascinated of synthesizers. So there was a new generation interested in synthesizers, and therefore we had the chance to grow fast, to attract a lot of very talented and good colleagues, and so Native became one of the main players in that field.
If you see back to your career or to your work with Native Instruments in the past, is it because you had only a limited power on the CPUs, on the RAM? Was it a challenge then to create some instruments like the Pro 53 or the Absynth on such limited devices? Because today we have the power of these on a little Raspberry Pi.
It was a challenge, and of course it had. We had to find ways to optimize and also to make compromises. I mean, in the beginning, but it was very clear that Intel was at our side. You can say they were doubling the power of the processors every 1.5 years, I think. So it was very obvious that if you today have maybe 5 voices, in 2 years you have 10 voices, or you have better quality of anti-aliased oscillators or whatever.
But do you think the plugin, for example, the plugin world, is it saturated in your opinion, or is there still space for something more innovative and more for the future? And what is your because you are one of the kings of plugins and you know how the market works, and what do you think? Is it, or are we circling around always the same thing?
Yeah, it seems like there's not much, let's say, innovation in regards to sound generation algorithms or so. So at the moment, everybody's about wavetable stuff, and it's so there. I also don't expect to the big steps in that field. But I think user interface is one of the biggest challenges. So that's where, I mean, if you have a complex sound engine, how to make it easy to use, intuitive to use without restricting the user too much. And with the graphical user interfaces, you have much more choice than with its hardware user interface. And therefore, I think there's still more to learn. And of course, on the field of controllers, so when controlling sound generators and instruments, we have new sensors. We have because of the, let's say, the technology for cell phones and tablets and so on, lots of CPU power to process the sensors, and so therefore, there might be some very interesting, let's say, user interface concepts or combinations between software and hardware in future. I think there's still some potential.
And your last product, or one of your last products at Native Instruments, was a kind of physical modeling or a bit of synthesizer, which was really, really nice. And I think it was part, or it goes to the transition to your hardware synth now, or?
I made some Reaktor instruments in the last years at Native Instruments. So there was one that was Prism, that was based on modal synthesis. And this is sounding very, let's say, acoustic and physical. And I was also exploring the field of waveguide synthesis, so based on comb filters. And the product was a Contour that came out actually when I already had left and was starting Nonlinear Labs, because with Nonlinear Labs I wanted to focus on on a live instrument, on a performance instrument where the playability is in the main focus. And and the sound engine of Contour was kind of a good basis to make something that is really responsive to the way how you play the keys, the velocity thing, and pedals and other controls.
And then you make the transition from Native Instruments to Nonlinear Labs, your own company, to another new company. What was the difficult part to go from a software developer to a hardware developer? Is it hard, or is it?
Actually, we ended up in a large complexity that was hard to handle with a small team. I mean, I was a hardware developer, so after my studies as an electrical engineer, I was in the development of electronics. And at Native, when we started controllers like for Guitaric and Core and Machine and so on, I was also involved with these hardware designs. And I went to China very often for the pilot runs and so on. So I got some, experience in that field. And also this was one of the reasons why I don't want to do things in China. So this, as a Nonlinear Labs, and in many cases is a bit different. In many ways, is a little bit different. And so I have I'm in a situation where I can, I sold my shares of Native Instruments, so I could really do some experiments, and that not being under pressure of, let's say, an investor or having to earn money in the first years.
And the final in your new career, your experimentation ends up in the Nonlinear Labs C15 instrument.
Yeah, right. That's I always played keyboard instruments, and I was unhappy, for example, with the quality of the keybed. For example, this is a simple thing that you think, they can build better keybeds, but nobody seems to want to spend money on that. This is one aspect, for example, having a keyboard that feels really nice, and Fatar is our vendor for that, and they have it available, and we wanted to connect a digital hardware that has a high resolution, very fast response, and sensitivity. So for all the things that you do on the keyboard. So it's about the velocities, it's about the aftertouch, it's about how we control bending and how we control other aspects. It's not, let's say, I wouldn't say it's not rocket science what we're doing here, but it's we try to do it in a, let's say, in a high quality way, and that also extends to the build or to the housings of the instruments. So we build them from wood, or say it's a reminiscence of let's say classical instruments, or maybe let's say the Hohner clavinet, or or the electric pianos. And on the other hand, it's a fully digital instrument, so we are not in a, how to say, not in the vintage market, or in the having any nostalgia. That was what. So so I don't I don't understand this nostalgia for synthesizers from the 60s or 70s. I mean, this was important, of course, an important era. But when it comes to sound generation, I'm looking into the future. I'm not interested to reproduce something that of the existing instruments. There's so much out there now, from the lowest prices to the very highest quality. You find everything if you want a Roland clone or now ARP clones or Moog clones or Moog and so on. That's stuff that is done. I think it's already fully saturated in this domain, and therefore I'm looking for fresh sounds, for sounds that are, let's say, playable and musical and responsive.
So we can't expect from Nonlinear Labs a Moog mini Moog reissue or a Prophet reissue. No.
And it's also about user interfaces. I mean, I think you showed that photo, and it's people they feel strange, or they okay, we have so many buttons and only one knob, and the user interface, it's a bit inspired from the Synclavier that and the interesting thing is it's a software based instrument, and we want it to be also sustainable. So future sound engines and future say improvements should reflect also in the user interface, and not only, let's say, in the menu of the screen, but really in touchable parameters. So touching a parameter means or control. Changing a parameter means to select it by typically just one movement of your hand. Your fingers after a while go automatically to the right place. And then you do it on the central encoder. And the stuff that you want to change, say while you're playing, you assign it to pedals and ribbons and
I remember the time where the first Superbooth happens in the Funkhaus. The synth was very very unique to see, because it was a complete different experience to touch it, and then the sound which it was very clear, very something that doesn't exist when I play it the first time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I played the DX7 for about 5 years. So in the 90s, the DX7, or in the 80s and 90s, the DX7 was for me one of the most important instruments. So the good thing with the DX7 was it was fully or 16 voices polyphonic, so really polyphonic. It was velocity sensitive in a dramatic way. And it had a metallic sound, which I was looking for, like for metallic and clear sounds, and also harsh sounds. Sometimes when I performed with the DX7, the people ask me, "Is it a sampler?" And I said, "No, it's just it's a synthesizer, but it's based on a different concept than the typical, say, analog synthesizer." And so what you get from FM, or we call it phase modulation, which is the correct term, you have a simple, let's say, basic unit like the operator or the oscillator. And it just has one waveform, like sine wave. And first, the sine wave is a good basis, because you always can get back to the sine wave, and that's like closing a filter. You can get rid of all the overtones, and you have kind of very pure tone. But when you modulate the phase of a sine wave, maybe with another sine wave, you already get a complex spectrum, and this spectrum can be can have this metallic character because it can be non-harmonic. In many cases it will stay in the harmonic series, but you can experiment with this, and you can get noises and aspects of the sound that are not available when you use, let's say, the subtractive synthesis. With subtractive synthesizers, you have a harmonic spectrum of your oscillator, and you can subtract or cut away parts of the spectrum with the filter, or enhance some of them, emphasize some of them. But the FM, which is one part of the, the sound generating or waveform generating part of the C15, this FM structure gives you complex spectra that can be absolute, let's say, non-harmonic and very noisy in the beginning, and you can still apply filters on that. I mean, we have a filter, Yeah? Let me show the structure.